Doctor Who and visual effects have a complicated relationship, from brilliant to interesting. Thanks to the home media range, there has been the option to watch the episodes with CGI replacements. Today, we'll be discussing and comparing the original effects and their CG replacements, who worked on them, and any interesting behind the scenes information. When Mike Tucker was commissioned to do the new CGI for the Dalek invasion of Earth, his brief was to make effects that would have been possible at the time if the original production team had a bit more money. Inspired by the heat ray effect from the War of the Worlds and the flying saucer effect from the Day the Earth Stood Still, he got to work. The Dalek saucer was based off the Dalek comic strips, modeled by Nick Sainton Clark. New background plates were shot specifically for this project, alongside the use of a spark generator, which helped create the heat ray effect. Personally, I think these replacement shots are fine, and I don't find them any more jarring than the original effect. Instead of just replacing the original model effects, Day of the Dalek received its own special edition. This replaced the original Dalek voices, added new specially filmed sequences, and brand new CGI effects. The project was produced by Seven Brewster, commissioned by Dan Hall. Nicholas Briggs, the voice of the Daleks for Big Finish and the new series, had recorded some new Dalek voices for the serial. The original Dalek voices were a bit flat and monotone compared to other Dalek voice artists throughout the years. Nick does an approximation of a new series Dalek voice mixed with the Death of the Daleks voice. The new specially shot sequences of the Dalek Ogron attack against the unit soldiers at Orderly House were created by a team using a 16mm film camera similar to one that would have been used on the original production. This camera was owned by John Kelly, a name you'll hear a lot in coming sections. The new footage is essentially seamless to the original production. From the original production only having 3 Daleks to having around 10, this gave the Dalek invasion a bit more of a scale. Toby Chamberlain, from This Planet Earth, supplied the Daleks and Ogron costumes. The new CGI was created by Michael Dinsdale and Aaron J. Klimas. These new effects enhanced the overall green grading of the story. It replaced the futuristic city and added a whole bunch of laser effects as well. Some of the highlights include the updated Dalek scanner screens, making the images on the monitors match the camera movements. Aaron's favourite shot that he worked on was the gold Dalek talking to the controller in Day of the Daleks, because he got to restore the part of the Dalek that disappeared due to the CSO effect. This wasn't part of the list Aaron was asked to do, he did this as a free extra. It's touches like this that shows what a great team of fans are involved in these releases. Overall, the edit doesn't really remove too much. It's mainly adding content and rearranging a few shots to create the same story. It's an incredibly polished production. After seeing this special edition, I find it difficult to go back. Are some of the effects outdated for a modern audience? Maybe so, but the new voice by Nicholas Briggs for the Daleks is just so much better, so I always choose to watch this version. As of the making of this video, the Season 10 Blu-ray set has not been released. The effects were done by Rob Ritchie and some work by Aaron J. Klimas, and these shots were from the announcement trailer. When Brendan Shepherd was researching The Time Warrior for the DVD documentary, Barry Letts told him how unhappy he was with the original special effects by Alan Bromley, and he believed the story was let down by them. Brendan always intended on doing CGI replacements, primarily just for the documentary, but was eventually commissioned to replace them for the full serial. Rob Semenoff worked on the opening shot of the Sontaran ship approaching Earth. Brendan did the majority of the rest, mainly laser effects, constructed in Illusion and polished in After Effects. The biggest improvement is the explosion at the end of the serial, which was specially filmed just for this release. When Barry Letts saw the new version, he turned to Brendan and said, "So, about the invasion of the dinosaurs." In my opinion, I think these replacement effects are brilliant. Not over the top, just simple and not in your face. Originally, the 3D model of the Ark was to be utilised in a different fashion. It was supposed to be a walkthrough of the station in 3D as a special feature. Mike Tucker and Nick Sainton Clark were commissioned to replace the original model shots in the full production with their 3D model. The Ark was modelled in Lightwave and composited in Illusion. Interestingly, this CGI replacement is only for the model shots. All the other visual effects are left untouched. Since they are only changing the exterior models and not the other effects, The new CGI can be a bit jarring. If it was the whole package, with laser effects being changed and all other little things tidied up, I think it might work better. So I don't personally mind watching the original model shots purely because it matches the other effects, but that doesn't stop the new models from looking amazing. Neil Bushnell was contacted by Chris Chapman to make the first commissioned CGI replacements for Doctor Who on Blu-ray. When he joined, the decision to do Revenge of the Cybermen was already decided. Originally, there were going to be 40 shots he was asked to replace, but he bumped that number to around 60. This was to clean up some of the CSO green screen shots in order to remove some of the fuzzy artifacts to give a cleaner look. One of the best examples of this cleanup is during the scene where the Doctor and Sarah Jane are piloting the Ark. Many of the 3D models were also built, including the Ark, the Cybership, and the planet. Neil focused on making the models match the studio sets to give a more unified look, whilst also staying true to the original models. Another great CG fix was replacing the rocket launch. The original shot of the rocket taking off was stock footage of Saturn V taking off. Neil used the same stock shot, but changed the rocket to appear more like the 3D model. I find these effects far superior to the original effects, and the final shot of the Doctor and Sarah Jane piloting the Ark from crashing into the planet's surface is just brilliant. Since the Ark in space has CGI replacements for the exterior, it makes sense for Revenge of the Cybermen to get the same treatment. So if you watch both serials side by side, the 3D model of the Ark looks the same. I hope Neil gets the chance to do future CGI for the Blu-ray range. John Kelly was asked to create the CG effects for The Invisible Enemy. This story is set on Titan, which is the largest moon of Saturn. Since the original production, we now have photos of what the real surface of Titan looks like. This is why the moon's surface is given an orange hue, which makes it more scientifically accurate. Many of the original laser effects were painted over in order to replace with new ones, alongside new spark particle effects for when K9 destroys the wall, and when the crewman laser a lock off a door. I have a lot of feelings about this story, and I'm in two minds. For the first time in this list, I'd have to say I wouldn't choose to watch the new effects when rewatching this serial. The original model shots are incredibly superior to their replacements, and seeing them side by side makes it even more obvious. The new laser effects are a huge improvement though, and it's hard to go back to that. If they had kept the original model shots and ignored scientific accuracy and updated everything else, I'd be a lot happier, but that's my personal opinion. The Invasion of Time's original effects, especially those of the Vardens, has been notorious for years. So when the new CG replacements was announced, many were very happy about it. John Kelly had been commissioned to do these replacement effects, totaling around 25 minutes of brand new effects. Laser and gun effects were replaced, and the original model shots were given a digital makeover, but still retained the original shot. But the most notable change was replacing the Vardens to give them a completely brand new look. The new Vardens were made by John Kelly wrapping himself entirely in tin foil and adding a whole bunch of CG effects on top. For me, the original Vardens are laughably bad, and the new CGI gave them some sort of presence in the story, which was desperately needed. The original model shots have just been jushed up with a bit of added effects on top of them, and it just looks brilliant, and it's a testament to the original model effects being just that good. Sadly, CGI cannot fix the story or replace the hospital TARDIS scenes, but we can't have everything, can we? John Kelly worked on the replacement effects for this serial, replacing some of the model shots and enhancing others. Primarily, the CG effects consisted of updating laser effects, and that's about it. In my opinion, it's a non-offensive edit, just cleaning up a few things, but ultimately, it blends nicely. These are kind of the best of the CGI enhancements for the purist at home, who don't like things changed too much, but just want a bit cleaner. Neil Bushnell was commissioned to create new CGI for Tom Baker's final story, Logopolis. This project required an extensive amount of specially shot material done by Neil and Chris Chapman. Chris Chapman and the team used a drone at Jodrell Bank, the original location, to record some new background plates to replace the original model shots. This is extra exciting due to the original production team were intending to shoot there, but sadly it didn't work out. So by filming these new segments, it gives the production a sense of restoration rather than replacing. The shot of Tom Baker dangling from Jodrell Bank was achieved by the use of a rope, a green screen, and Neil's friend Ethan. Then it was composited with Tom Baker's face in post. An interesting shot is where they replaced a static image of Anthony Ainley watching Tom fumble about on the tower and added some movement to it. Overall, they replaced over 70 shots. The strong point of Logopolis' CGI come from fixing the awful TARDIS computer graphics and establishing a consistent look for the Pharos Project's telescope, and giving the Fourth Doctor dangling a bit more of a polish. The extra lengths the team went to get drones and approval to film at the original location, where the original production team wished to shoot, shows the love and care that went into this. Neil Bushnell was in charge of the new CGI for CASTROVALVA, replacing laser effects, cleaning up CSO shots, replacing TARDIS exterior shots, and the planet shots. There is a mix of 2D and 3D animation to achieve these shots. Some of the biggest changes was the exterior of the city and the cliffhanger shot where everything is distorted. One of my favourite things the team has been doing is cleaning up the CSO fringing and making the effect that bit cleaner. But why is CASTROVALVA blue and not pink? Not that it really matters. I also think that the cliffhanger shot still will never look nice, no matter what anyone does with it. It's a concept that works great on paper, but it never seems to translate on screen for me. Kinder received replacement effects only for the final scene featuring the Mara. The snake effect was created by Sally Clayton and Chris Petz. Chris and possibly Sally were involved with the Mill Visual Effects Company, who worked on the new series of Doctor Who. Chris worked on the first 2 seasons of the new series and has also done a variety of CG shots for Loose Cannon in the past. Sadly, I couldn't find any further information on Sally. The new CGI effect is faithful in concept, and its execution is much more lifelike, giving this final scene that little bit of polish that it really needed. It's possibly the most convincing CGI replacement we have ever gotten, and I doubt it'll ever be topped. A few different people worked on the new CGI for EARTHSHOCK. Dave Jervis at BBC Resources 3D and Video Effects created the new laser effects using a mixing desk live. Dave had to paint out the original laser effects in order to create the new ones. It was animated in After Effects. BBC Visual Effects members Mike Tucker and Nick Sainton-Clark were asked to construct Adric's demise by creating the freighter plummeting into Earth. These effects were composited into illusion by Ian Simpson at BBC Resources. This is another non-offensive edit in my opinion. Nothing too jarring. Maybe the Earth looks a bit too crisp for the 1980s, but you forgive it. The laser effects are definitely an improvement. The new visual effects for Arc of Infinity were created by John Kelly and had a total of 18 new effects. Most of the visual effects replacements were just enhancing the originals, which has been established as John Kelly's signature style by this point. In my opinion, some of the effects are a little bit extra, and I'm not sure the original effects are bad enough to really warrant this story to get the CGI treatment. It's not bad, it's just, is it really necessary? Especially considering this was packaged with Time Flight, which is a story that needs all the help it can get. Rob Semenoff did the new 3D CGI for MAWDRYN UNDEAD alongside Aaron J. Klimas. Rob's 3D work was based off Russell Owen's storyboard and directed by Brendan Shepard. The spaceships for this release, according to Aaron, took so long to render that Brendan had to do a lot of the particle shots himself. Aaron completed an incredible amount of rotoscoping shots. Rotoscoping, in basic terms, involves cutting out actors from the background so that a new background can be placed. To do the shot with Turlough and the Black Guardian's first meeting, it took around 3 weeks to complete. After he delivered the first version, he noticed it wasn't progressive video and had to do even further edits to fill in the missing fields. Apparently, one of the hardest things to do was to rotoscope the Black Guardian's bird hat. In my opinion, where this CGI addition shines is the brilliant rotoscoping work to get rid of the awful green background when Turlough is first taken by the Black Guardian. This CGI is a bit more creative than some of the others, and I prefer the look of it, but it's really down to personal taste with this one. Terminus's special effects were also created by Rob Semenoff and Aaron J. Klimas. The storyboards were done by Russell Owens and directed by Brendan Shepherd once again. Many of the effects changes were to replace the model shots and enhance the Black Guardian's effects to match the new ones from MAWDRYN Undead. Enhancements such as replacing the pixelated effect to having Tegan actually being in the TARDIS hallway makes a lot more sense to the viewer. Some of this may look a bit too CGI, but since it tells the story a lot better, I forgive it. In my opinion, Terminus has never looked this good. There are quite a few effects, such as the beginning in the TARDIS where Nissa's wall becomes the ship entrance, that just look a hell of a lot better. Sure, some of the CGI has aged since making this, but it is better than the original, in my opinion. I really love all the new 3D models of the ships, and I can't help but enjoy the fancy 3D camera movements. Enlightenment retained a similar team from the previous two releases. Rob Semenoff and Aaron J. Klimas returned to do the animation, and so did the storyboard artist Russell Owens. But for this special edition release, Brendan Shepherd, the director, was joined by the original director of Enlightenment, Fiona Cumming, to consult on this new edit. This version has cropped the 4:3 picture to fit a 16:9 screen, and has extended shots, reworked sequences, and some scenes cut completely. It is being edited into a feature-length production, rather than multiple individual episodes. The original models of the ships have now been replaced entirely, and feature some impressive CG work. The effects wouldn't look out of place from a new series episode that was being broadcast at the time. A sizable change came from replacing the ship's window from a tiny square into a large window that takes up the entire screen. Thankfully, the model at the end is faithfully recreated, with a nice touch of making the top similar to Turlo's communication crystal. Aaron told me that the new effects were rendered in 720i for a potential future Blu-ray release, so it's nice to know they've been future-proofing some of these effects. He also recalled talking over Skype to Brendan, discussing missing episode animations, completely unaware that Fiona was on the other end, out of shot. So when Brendan turned the camera to face her, he was slightly embarrassed that he was waffling on about Doctor Who with a real Doctor Who director on the other line. It's kind of tough comparing a condensed, cropped 16:9 version to the original 4:3 version with no CGI. The original models are kind of beautiful in their own way, but the CGI is brilliant in its own way as well. I'm not sure why this story out of the trilogy got this kind of edit. It's a bit strange. I think I would have preferred just ordinary CGI replacements rather than a full re-edit, in order for it to match the other two. Either way, I find both versions of the story quite enjoyable. The 5 Doctors Special Edition, originally released on VHS, is an extended version of the original story with a variety of new CGI. This version boasts over 10 minutes of extra content. The special edition was directed by Paul Venezes, and the CG effects were completed by Alison Rickman and Dave Chapman. Alison designed the effects on Harriet Paintbox, and Dave animated them using Charisma DVE. The timescoop replacement, now dubbed the Mr. Whippy effect by some fans, replaced the original black obelisk. The effect was designed by Joey McGrogan. Joey intended the effect to appear as a glass cone. When the 4th Doctor is returned, the team changed the shot to a more appropriate shot from the unfinished serial, Sharda. Also, when the other Doctors leave, instead of leaving in a TARDIS, they are returned via timescoop, which makes sense because only the 5th Doctor arrived at the Death Zone in a TARDIS. Okay, my opinion is going to upset a lot of people, but I like the new CGI with Mr. Whippy. You have to understand, I saw the special edition before the original version, so I've always associated the effect with that one. I don't have the same affection for the original effect that everyone else does, but I do own a shirt designed by Kieran Hyman with the original effect. Therefore, I have proven my loyalty to both. After Fiona Cumming and Brendan Shepherd worked on the special edition of Enlightenment, she told Brendan about her disappointment at some of the visual effects in Planet of Fire, and they both discussed re-editing her second 5th Doctor serial. Also, similar to Enlightenment, the story was cut down and cropped to 16:9. It contained an incredible amount of new visual effects, and a heavy regrade of the original footage. The CGI was completed by Rob Semenoff and Aaron J. Klimas. When discussing Planet of Fire, Aaron simply said, "Let's not talk about Planet of Fire." He was given only 6 days to create 14 spaceship shots. This involved it crashing, being on fire, and its smoking ruin. Thankfully, he was sent a 3D model of the ship, but it was a lightwave file, so none of the texture information came across. This means that he had to remap all the textures and animate, render, composite, and upload all these shots in an already tight deadline. The specially filmed opening sequence was already shot by the time Aaron had a copy of it, and all the notes he got back were more fire, more smoke, and more explosions. So he eventually decided to turn all the sliders to maximum, and the producers were happy. After all of this deadline talk, the project sat on a shelf for 12 months. Looking at this special edition, you can't deny it's definitely a Planet of Fire. Everywhere you look, there's a fire. Sure, it's a little bit extra, but I can't help but enjoying it for what it is. I see it more of an experiment of turning classic Who into a mid-2000s New Who episode. Is this the best way of viewing the story? Probably not, but it is an interesting way of rewatching a story we all know too well. For Revelation of the Daleks, John Kelly provided new CGI replacements. All laser shots were replaced to attempt to improve the Dalek battle sequences and the scenes with Davros. These effects were done in After Effects. In John Kelly's style, they are incredibly faithful to the original effects, just tidied up. A nice simple replacement was repairing the incorrectly graded purple sky. The glass Dalek materialization has been changed also to a more suitable glow transition. The scene where a hovering Dalek exterminates Grigory and Natasha was completed by filming a model Dalek against a green screen, correcting the original intended perspective of that shot. What a godsend we have this edit. It's not over the top, it's subtle and replaces one of the worst Dalek effects ever, which was the scene where the Dalek is floating, but the angle and lighting is incorrect that I mentioned earlier. It's just a cleaning up of the original, and not some crazy flashy effects. It's just brilliant. The Season 23 Blu-ray set will have a specially recut edition of Terror of the Vervoids, which takes out all the trial segments, and has updated CGI effects as well. Battlefield, like the 5 Doctors Special Edition, was originally released on VHS. Oddly, this DVD release is the first time Battlefield had been released in its original broadcast format. Mark Ayres reordered the special edition to match the original script closer, depending on what had been shot. The new CGI was created by Mark, Peter Crocker, and John Kelly. A few new aerial shots were created for this also, mainly for the helicopter scenes with the Brigadier. The majority of the editing was to tighten up the final product. One of the highlights of this was fixing the pacing of the boom sequence. When you watch the sequence side by side, how could you ever go back? The special edition is faithful to the original, keeping the effects similar but with minor cleanups, and restores quite a few nice character moments. I always choose the special edition over the original when it comes to Battlefield. Similar to the previous story, the extended version of The Curse of Fenric was released on VHS first. Yet, when this DVD release came around, it was decided to release the original broadcast version alongside a brand new movie-length edit with a 5.1 surround sound mix and new special effects. This version added an additional 5 minutes to the original extended version. Nick Mallett, the original director of The Curse of Fenric, had planned this extended edition with Mark Ayres many years before Nick's death in 1997. It made sense to create a feature version instead of extended episodes due to each episode being varied in length. Ian Simpson created a new effect of letters appearing in a wooden board. Due to the original effect not working as successful as the original test in studios did, it is now restored to look how it should have done, but a little bit of glow to seal the deal. The eye glow effect of Fenric was enhanced in post as well, to give a more glowing effect than the original practical contacts could have achieved. We also have new lighting effects, a significant colour grade to help each shot match the weather the scene is supposed to be experiencing. Also, CG rain is being attached. The Curse of Fenric Special Edition, in my opinion, is one of the best movie-length edits. Its new CGI is subtle and accurate to the original. What shines most is the colour grade, which helps improve the stormy atmosphere and gives it such a moody feel without it feeling like an Instagram filter. Looking at the recent Blu-ray releases, we have been receiving one new set of CGI replacements for a story each season. Personally, I hope stories such as Invasion of the Dinosaurs get the CGI treatment. What story would you like to get the CGI treatment most? A big thank you to Aaron J. Klimas for his comments and contributions to this video. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel for more Doctor Who content.